hundreds of times over the years. How did you get Rena?
Now bound by a shared secret of murder, the Wests began a new life that was to revolve around violent sex attacks on young girls. In September 1972, a small ad targeted Gloucester's young people. Fred and Rose West had turned the upstairs of their home into rented rooms.
There were so many heroes and blokes going in and out of that house that I hadn't got a bloody clue. Rose was putting people in and taking them out and letting them stay there and enticing them there, they bloody young girls, lot. And I didn't realise that. No. Because she was having casual sex with some of them.
Rose West was an incest-ravaged 18-year-old, pushed to prostitution by her husband. Abused by men, she became attracted to women and cruel to them. The public found out when the Wests kidnapped a beauty queen, Caroline Owens. The attack would be key evidence in Rose West's murder trial 22 years later.
The attack on Caroline Owens was a blueprint for a prolonged campaign of sexual violence against girls by the Wests.
When Rose attacked that girl that night in that car, I mean, I didn't know what to bloody do. I mean, Rose had tape in the car, ready to tape her mouth up, tied her hands up with a washer. Rose had got her legs open, beating her between the legs. I was like, for fuck's sake, keep away from her, leave her. And anyway, I apologised and everything, and that's why we only got fined £20 odd.
Mrs. Owens claimed she'd been knocked senseless by Fred West before being tied up and having tape wrapped round her head. Today it emerged that Mr. and Mrs. West had each been fined after admitting assaulting and an indecency offence against Mrs. Owens at Gloucester Magistrates Court in 1973.
The Wests got away with rape and kidnap without serious punishment. The crimes were to escalate.
There was a process involved in which they had become quite alert to who were potentially vulnerable victims, and in which they'd become very skilled at attracting those victims in and making themselves seem very plausible and very innocent, and until the victims were within their control.
Sharon Compton sees herself as a survivor of 25 Cromwell Street. In 1979, Sharon was in a social services care home in Gloucester when she met a friend, Alison Chambers, who was to be found murdered.
The reason Alison and we got on so well was we sort of clicked instantly. We didn't have to say it, but we both knew that we'd been sort of abused.
When Alison told Sharon Compton about her new friends Fred and Rose West in 1979, neither girl knew about the 7 bodies under the house and garden. Alison Chambers was looking to run away, and her friend Sharon believed the Wests were already luring other care home girls.
I think I visited Cromwell Street. I wasn't here very long before I started going there with Alison. And most of the other girls were there all the time. Using the rooms. I can say prostitute now, but I didn't know what a prostitute was then, but I know that's what they were doing. Myself and the other girls were drawn to Cromwell Street because it was just the feeling of being wanted by a family. It was the family routines of every day. Within about a fortnight, Fred's nature or his sexual nature was apparent. It was sort of thrown in your face that, you know, Rosie's involvement on the sexual side of things taking place was her idea in the first place for Alison and I to perform blowjobs with Fred. Rosie used to have polyester, chiffon scarves. She had a blue one, turquoisey one, yellow one, and there was that sort of domineering side of pulling it tight, holding you down, tying you to the bed, and they had to be so tight. But she used to say to Fred, "Oh, don't mark them, don't mark them." And Rosie would used to say, no, I want to do more. Come on, let's do more, let's do more, let's do more. She used to say all the time. Fred would play the music normally loud to cover Alison and I's screams. They'd play the music quite loud. Alison, I don't know, played along with this pain side. She thought she was doing good to put up with the pain more and more, whereas I couldn't tolerate it.
Sharon says her horrific memories were fractured by drugs given to her at the time.
Memories of Alison being hurt at Cromwell Street, and to the extent of how she was hurt, I don't know how she would have been able to get up out of the chair. The very first time that I was hurt badly there, she gave us a cup of tea and it tasted disgusting. It tasted like aspirin, loads and loads of aspirin in this cup of tea. And it sort of made you feel a bit dopey and funny.
Maybe they'd been drugged out of their brains then. They wouldn't know what time of day it was. Whether they were girls or boys. They hadn't got a clue what they were doing.
In 1972 and 73, police took an interest in 25 Cromwell Street and raided the house. But they didn't come for Fred West. He'd become an informer, encouraging drug raids with tip-offs about his own lodgers. Years later, there was a thriving prostitution business in the house.
There'd be people drinking at the bar upstairs. You know, smartly dressed people there. If they weren't doing things, then they're watching. And Rosie was making a fuss of them.
Police knew nothing about it. Sharon Compton made headlines with a claim that policemen were having sex at Cromwell Street at a time when girls were being tortured and killed. In secret, Fred West had also made such claims.
He just said that police officers were having sex with Rose and they used to visit Cromwell Street on a regular basis and pay Fred. There was quite a lot of police involved with relationships with Rose up in the top room of where she used to do her business, as he said.
An official inquiry cleared police of using Cromwell Street for sex or as a drinking den. It also said Sharon Compton had never been there, nor been assaulted there. But the West case provoked another inquiry. A report into the social services home that looked after Alison Chambers found files were missing.
Today's report by the Bridge Consultancy says Gloucestershire Social Services lost trace of 100 youngsters in their care between 1970 and 1994. Further, files on 390 missing people have been lost.
Quite frankly, as the carers, we ought to know how many children are missing. The small evidence that we have is that the numbers by no means match up to the extrapolated figures that the report is alleged to quote.
The report said carers kept few details on where runaway girls ended up, and they knew nothing of links with 25 Cromwell Street. Sharon Compton claims that in 1979, girls did go there.
When girls absconded from Jordensbrook, it was send out a couple of members of staff. The police were called, and if they were found, they were brought back. But the common knowledge would be that their first place would be Cromwell Street to look.
Of the West's 12 murder victims, 6 had spent time in other care homes.
I think the contents of this report are deeply worrying. They reveal a catalogue of administrative incompetence which almost passes belief. The fact that 400 files could be missing on children and 100 children themselves could be missing, and nobody, it seems, has been doing anything about it at all. Some questions clearly need to be answered.
There has still been no public inquiry into the West's crimes.
When you look at the history of the assaults and murders that Fred and Rose were involved in, you'll see there are lots of points at which it could have been stopped, at which somebody could have taken an action, or 2 or 3 people could have taken an action and it would have brought it to an end. But that didn't happen. That creates the conditions for further development and further continuation.
As Gloucester and Cheltenham celebrated Easter in 1994, both West's defence solicitor and the murder inquiry team look forward to a break. Six weeks of hard investigation, at all times under the spotlight of massive press interest, had built a close team of the 84 officers assigned full-time to the case.
A happy Easter, and on behalf of the inquiry team, we brought you all an Easter egg.
It was day 41 of the inquiry. Police had recovered 9 bodies, but had yet to identify them all. Howard Ogden had heard Fred West confess to murder in 90 separate police interviews. West's wife, Rose, was free on bail, but under intense investigation. But there was about to be a dramatic development. West, who had always taken responsibility for the murders, suddenly turned on his wife.
I recollect taking him in his Easter egg so that he took part in the Easter festival as well. And it was a difficult and emotional time for Fred. My concern was to keep him together, to focus his thoughts, because he was a man who had been spilling the beans for months, basically that having admitted at that point I think 10 murders, all the way through his instructions were that he had committed these offences. There was a major problem, and the major problem was the account that Fred was now giving was totally at odds with the account he'd been giving us for the last 2 months. Within an afternoon, we had the junior counsel, the Silk, and the consultant psychiatrist in to see Fred.
Well, yeah, I mean, he was totally mad. He really was, because, he was so convincing, and I think he really believed what he was saying at the time. But then if it didn't sound right, he'd change it again.
And the advice that I was given was that it was part and parcel of a serial killer's psyche to go into denial. I went that evening and sat down with Fred, and he gave me a full account of his changed instructions, which account principally would be summarised as, well, Rose done it.
Once he became aware that she may reveal some of the secrets, then clearly the logic for him is to start fingering her, to start saying she was the real culprit, and to try and get the accusations into her before she started accusing him.
On April the 24th, police arrested Rose West and charged her with murder.
The couple arrived at Gloucester Magistrates Court in separate prison vans this morning. Rosemary West, who's 40, had been brought from Pucklechurch Remand Centre near Bristol, handcuffed throughout the journey. The court appearance was to be the first time they'd seen each other since they were arrested 4 months ago. In court, Rosemary West was brought into the dock first, her head bowed. She sat flanked by 2 women prison officers. When Fred West was escorted into the dock, he leaned forward and touched her shoulder. She didn't acknowledge this gesture. There appeared to be no communication between them, Rosemary steadfastly ignoring him.
I think that he was prepared to take the rap for her. But then, when they appeared in court, she snubbed him in court. And once she'd done that, she might as well have pleaded guilty then, because he turned. I mean, once he turned, that was it.
Fred West told Howard Ogden he'd lied to police from the start.
Now, wait a minute. Yeah, this is where we got hell of a problem. We've got to get it all out, sort it out. Because I have mixed it up deliberately for the police.
According to West's latest version, the night police came to dig up his patio, he came home and told his wife there was no need to worry. But Rose had a confession to make about what was in their back garden.
She said, I think there's a piss wall out there, what are you worried about? And then she said, oh yeah, there is. And I can remember taking a breath and swallowing it. And I said, what the flaming hell do you mean? She said, there's out there. Well, I mean, I just luckily died for a minute. You know, I sit down, I got a fag and I was trying to light it and God knows what. So I said, what do you mean there's out there? She said, yeah, Heather's buried out there. So I said, where? She said, at the end of the fence, where the fence used to go across. And I said, right, fucking hell. It seemed as though my whole life stopped there, finished. You know, and I couldn't think of nothing. I mean, Heather, I thought the bloody world of Heather. So anyway, I got to grips with it after a while. And the first thing that came into my mind was, I'm going to have to take this and sort it out. Which I did. All the messes Rose got herself into, I took the fucking rap for him and helped him out of it. So anyway, I said, look, you'll have to tell me exactly what happened. She said that Heather was cut up. Well, I never felt so ill in all my life for a few seconds, a few minutes before I could get a grip of myself again. And I said, what on earth did you cut her up for? She said she wouldn't fit in a dustbin. Now the thing that makes it hard, that she cut Heather up and chucked her in a fucking dustbin. Her daughter in a dustbin.
West says he started to come up with the false confession to the one murder he'd been told about, the killing of his teenage daughter, Heather.
I am working out what I'm going to tell the police, how I'm going to handle it. Right? One body, fully clothed, or I thought at the first place, but no, by now I know it's cut up, so I have to think out why the bloody hell did I cut her up? I mean, what reason for that did I cut this girl up? That's why I said, well, at least it's only one. I said, so, you know, I mean, you could accidentally kill one, but I mean, you wouldn't get away with accidentally killing two, like, sort of thing. That's the thought that was going through my mind, like. So I said, well, is that it? Oh no, she said, I don't know, it was 7 or 8, 9, something like that. No. So anyway, Rose told me where the ones in the basement was. I said to Rose, I said, well, fuck me, they ain't done bad, have it? I said, that's fucking, you know, I've got a fucking enough here, haven't you?
According to West, his wife then admitted she had killed another of his children.
She said, and Charmaine. I said, what, Charmaine? I said, hang on a fucking minute, where's Charmaine? She said, Charmaine's buried in the coal cellar in Midland Road.
Charmaine was Fred West's stepdaughter. She'd gone missing from her previous home at 25 Midland Road, Gloucester, in 1971.
Yeah, she's buried in the corner, she said. I said, she's not fucking cut up. I mean, you haven't cut a fucking child up, for God's sake. You know, I mean, that was the feeling that was coming to me. Oh no, she said. Oh no, she's not cut up, she said. She's fully clothed, wrapped in blankets and buried.
Policeman George Sharp carried out the black drape box containing the latest remains to be discovered in the mass murder investigation. They are now being minutely examined to confirm the identity of the body.
Although we think this set of remains is Charmaine, legally we don't know. So that was the situation. Actually running close to the trial of Rosemary West, this particular set of remains, Charmaine, became absolutely crucial to that prosecution.
For once, there would be independent support for West's claim that Rose West had killed Charmaine. A smiling photo of the little girl could give Fred West a genuine alibi.
He was in jail for some, I think, a relatively minor offence, but he was in jail.
On December the 4th, 1970, Fred West went to jail for dishonesty and theft of a vehicle tax disc. The 6.5-month jail term would point to West's innocence of at least one murder, the death of 8-year-old Charmaine West. If science could prove when Charmaine died, Rose West could be convicted of the first of the Gloucester killings.
We got the original negatives. The original negatives were written, you know, on the edge of the film, if you like, the date on which they were taken, 14th of April, whatever year it was. That was crucial because we'd got the quality, we got the teeth visible. You can see them here. I mean, you can see the amount of information there is there. It's absolutely superb. And we can use that to scale our set of remains, we can look at very small discrepancies between the size of the skull and the size of the photograph, and that tells us how much growth has gone on, okay, between the photograph being taken on the 14th of April and death. And if we can estimate that period of time, we've not only identified Charmaine, but we've determined when she died as well.
Dr. Whitaker concluded that Charmaine was likely to have been killed when Fred West was in prison.
Can you twist the skull round?
Rose lied to me, which hurt me as well, about Charmaine. She said that Charmaine was an accident or something. She grabbed her or something by the throat or something and killed her. I can't exactly what she did say about Charmaine. She said she killed her and buried her in the basement underneath at the back of the house. And I said, well, you didn't cut her up. And she's, oh no, I wouldn't, no, nothing like that. She said she's fully clothed and I wrapped her up in a blanket and buried her. And that's what I said.
So you said to the police?
But that wasn't it at all when the police found her. She was naked and whether she'd been cut up, I don't know.
Before his arrest for mass murder, Fred West maintained a charade of family life. The Wests were seen here at the Guy Fawkes celebrations in Gloucester Park in 1991.
Guy Fawkes is a man.
Yeah. Oh, he's all right, sir. Come on, is that supposed to be easy? No.
3 years later, West would claim on secret defense tapes that the mother of the family, Rose, was a serial killer and had boasted to him about the first victim she'd buried at Cromwell Street.
She said, what about Linda Goff? I said, you bitch. Because I'd already, whenever she said that, I realised that I thought, fuck me, she'd killed her and had her fucking clothes on.
When Linda Goff went missing in 1973, she'd been staying in one of the West's rented rooms